Have you ever realized how much time we spend on our phones? Scrolling, tapping, checking messages over and over again. We call it staying connected, but sometimes it feels like the opposite. We're surrounded by screens, but feel distant from what's real. Every buzz, every notification, it pulls us away from the present. We think we're being productive, but deep down, it's just noise. One morning, I asked myself a simple question. What if I turned it off? Just for one day? What would happen if I stopped reaching for my phone and started reaching for life instead? That's how my little experiment began. A phone-free day that changed everything. I remember the morning I decided to turn off my phone. No plan, no reason, just a quiet thought that whispered, maybe, just try. It felt strange. My phone had always been my companion, my map, my clock, my mirror. I used it for everything. It was the first thing I touched in the morning, the last thing before sleep. So, turning it off? It felt like jumping into cold water. Unexpected. Shocking. But maybe that's what I needed. A little shock to wake me up. At first, I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the power button. It's funny how something so simple can feel so big. When the screen went black, silence filled the space. No buzz, no pings, just stillness. And in that stillness, I realized how noisy my days had become. Every minute had been filled with notifications, endless scrolls, and background noise. Without them, the air felt different, lighter, slower, more real. I made a cup of coffee. No podcast playing, no music. Just me and the sound of the spoon against the cup, the smell of roasted beans, the warmth on my hands. Little things I hadn't really noticed in years. My attention was mine again, not scattered across screens. I looked out the window and saw sunlight moving through the leaves. Noticed how the wind bent the trees, how the sky looked softer than I remembered. It's easy to forget how much we miss when our minds are full of noise. We think multitasking means progress, but sometimes it's just distraction. We chase updates, but miss the present moment unfolding right in front of us. That day, I realized my phone wasn't the problem. My habits were. The constant need to check, to scroll, to refresh. It wasn't curiosity, it was craving. And craving, when left unchecked, quietly takes control. As the morning turned to noon, something shifted. I stopped thinking about what I might be missing online. Instead, I started noticing what I had right here: time, space, a calm I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt more grounded, more human, like I had stepped out of a crowded room and into fresh air. No pressure to respond, no timeline to keep up with, just me, in the moment. And you know what? The world didn't end. No one panicked because I was offline. The messages waited, the updates kept coming, but they didn't need me right away. Life moved on. And so did I. That was the first thing I learned from my phone-free day. Disconnection isn't loss. It's a quiet return to yourself, to the world, to what's real. Sometimes to move forward, you just have to pause. And that pause begins with a single choice: to turn it off. The first few hours without my phone felt uneasy. There was this quiet tension in my chest, like something important was missing. My fingers twitched, wanting to check messages that weren't even there. I kept glancing at the empty space on my desk where my phone usually sat. It's strange, isn't it? How a small device can feel like a lifeline. I didn't realize how dependent I'd become until I had to face the silence. At first, the silence was heavy. It made me uncomfortable, like standing in a room too quiet to feel safe. I caught myself thinking, what if someone needs me? What if I'm missing something urgent? But deep down I knew most things could wait. The urgency I felt wasn't real. It was habit. We've trained ourselves to respond, to react, to never pause. But the mind, when given silence, starts to speak in softer tones. And I began to listen. As the morning stretched on, I noticed how restless I'd become. I walked around, made coffee again, opened a book, then closed it. It was like I didn't know how to just be. We spend so much time filling every second that stillness feels unnatural. But in that restlessness, I found something important: awareness. Awareness of how much I'd been running from quiet moments. Because quiet means thinking, and thinking can be uncomfortable. So I sat with it, just sat. No distractions, no screens. At first, my thoughts were loud: lists, worries, random memories. Then slowly they softened. It felt like waves settling after a storm. And underneath all that noise, there was calm. It had always been there. I just hadn't given it space. That's when I realized the fear of missing out isn't really about missing anything outside. It's about missing connection inside. When we're constantly online, our attention is everywhere but here. We chase updates, validation, stimulation. But the truth is, presence doesn't need a signal. It just needs attention. I started noticing how my body felt, the rhythm of my breathing, the way sunlight warmed my arm, the tiny hum of the refrigerator in the background, things I'd never paid attention to before. It was strange, but in the best way, like meeting life again for the first time. I realized how much my phone had shaped the rhythm of my days. I reached for it when I was bored, anxious, tired, even lonely. It was my escape, my comfort, my distraction. But stepping away showed me something powerful. I didn't need constant connection to feel whole. In fact, constant connection was keeping me from it. By noon, that nervous energy had softened. My thoughts slowed down. My breath deepened. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full, full of moments I'd been too busy to notice, full of small wonders that didn't need to be posted or liked. I realized that peace doesn't come from knowing everything happening online. It comes from being fully present in what's happening now. That was lesson number 2 from my phone-free day. Discomfort is just the doorway to awareness. You can't find calm without passing through the noise first. And sometimes the only way to hear yourself again is to stop answering everything else. As the day went on, something inside me began to shift. Without my phone, the world started to feel wider, softer, more alive. I noticed the rhythm of life moving around me, gentle, patient, unhurried. There was no buzzing, no pings, no screens demanding my focus. Just the quiet sound of real things, the breeze, footsteps, laughter outside. I decided to go for a walk. No earbuds, no camera, just me in the street. It felt odd at first, like I'd left a part of myself behind. But as I walked, that emptiness began to fill, with sounds, sights, and sensations I'd been too distracted to notice. A child giggling as they chased a ball, a woman watering her plants, humming softly to herself. Even the cracks on the sidewalk told a story I'd never stopped to read. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't rushing anywhere. I wasn't trying to capture anything for later. I was simply there, moving, breathing, existing. And it was enough. I passed by a small cafe I'd seen 100 times before, but never really looked at. The scent of coffee drifted out, rich and warm. I decided to step inside. No notifications, no urge to check time. Just the sound of cups clinking, soft jazz playing in the background. The barista smiled, and we actually talked. Not just small talk, but a real conversation. About books, about how fast life moves. It felt genuine, unfiltered. Like connection wasn't something you scroll to find, but something you feel when you're fully present. I sat by the window and watched people walk by. Some stared at their phones, some talked to each other, some just looked lost in thought. And I wondered, how often do we look up anymore? How often do we notice the little stories unfolding all around us? The world is always talking, but we rarely listen. That day, I finally did. As I finished my coffee, I realized something beautiful. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of everything else we've been too distracted to hear. The hum of life that's always there, waiting for us to return. I'd spent years thinking my phone kept me connected, but true connection doesn't need Wi Fi, it needs awareness. When I walked back home, the air felt lighter. I smiled at strangers, and some smiled back. That simple exchange felt more rewarding than any number of likes or messages. It reminded me that connection isn't digital, it's deeply human. It's in eye contact, shared laughter, small moments that exist only once. You can't scroll back to them, you can only live them. By evening, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't known I was missing. Not the kind that comes from escaping, but from returning. Returning to the moment, to the senses, to the pulse of real life. And in that return, I found joy, quiet, steady, grounded. That was lesson number 3 from my phone free day. When you look up from your screen, the world doesn't disappear. It unfolds. It invites you in, one small, beautiful moment at a time. All you have to do is notice. Later that afternoon, something unexpected happened. I started talking to people. Really talking. Not the quick, distracted kind of conversations we have between notifications, but the slow, genuine kind where every word feels alive. Without my phone, there was no rush, no background noise pulling me away. It was just me, face to face with another human being. I met my neighbor outside, someone I'd seen for years but barely knew. We started chatting about her garden, about how the weather had been kind to her roses this year. She laughed about how her dog always digs where he shouldn't. It was simple, ordinary, but also meaningful. That kind of connection doesn't make headlines, but it nourishes something deep inside. We forget how natural it is to connect, to share, to listen. Our devices make us believe communication is about speed, but it's really about presence. When you're not half listening while scrolling, conversations breathe again. They stretch, they flow, they surprise you. You remember that listening isn't waiting for your turn to talk, it's being there. I later met a friend for lunch. Usually our phones sat on the table, face down but never far away. This time, I left mine in my bag. We talked longer, laughed louder, and somehow everything felt lighter. I didn't check the time once. I wasn't thinking about capturing the perfect moment. I was simply living it. And that, I realized, makes all the difference. We often think we need big events to feel connection, but sometimes it's in the smallest, most human moments. A shared smile, a deep laugh, a story told without hurry. There's something sacred about giving someone your full attention. It's like saying, "You matter right now more than anything else." And that's a gift we rarely give in our digital age. Throughout the afternoon, I felt more human, more myself. Conversations weren't about posting or proving anything. They were just real, and real was enough. It made me wonder how many meaningful moments we've missed because we were busy capturing them instead of experiencing them. We record everything, yet remember so little. Because memory isn't made through pixels, it's made through presence. Later, as I walked home, I replayed those small exchanges in my mind. They lingered, like soft echoes of something honest. It wasn't about deep philosophy or emotional breakthroughs, just small moments of truth between people who actually looked at each other. And I thought, maybe this is what we're all craving. Not more followers, not more likes, but more moments that feel real. That was lesson number 4 from my phone free day. Connection doesn't live in the cloud, it lives in conversation. When you look up, when you listen, when you show up, you create something no screen can replicate. It's not about disconnecting from the world. It's about reconnecting to it. One voice, one laugh, one shared moment at a time. And sometimes, all it takes to rediscover that magic is to put the phone away and be fully here. By the evening, something inside me had completely changed. I felt lighter, freer, almost as if a weight I didn't know I was carrying had fallen away. It wasn't about missing my phone anymore. It was about finding myself again. For the first time in years, I wasn't being pulled in 100 directions. My mind felt calm. My thoughts moved slower. My attention stayed where I wanted it to. Freedom is a strange feeling when you've lived without it for so long. We think we're free because we can access everything, anytime, anywhere. But in truth, that constant access becomes a cage. It keeps us scrolling, comparing, chasing something undefined. And the more we chase, the further we drift from the present. As I sat on my balcony, watching the sky fade from gold to blue, I realized how quiet the world can be when you let it. The city still hummed, cars still moved, but it all felt softer. I wasn't lost in it. I was part of it. That sense of belonging didn't come from being online, but from being aware. Aware of where I was, who I was, and what I truly needed. We often mistake stimulation for satisfaction. The endless scroll gives us the illusion of choice, but it rarely gives us peace. Our brains crave rest, but our thumbs keep moving. That evening, I learned the power of stopping. Just stopping. To breathe, to notice, to exist, without needing to perform. I made dinner slowly, without background noise. The sound of vegetables sizzling, the smell of garlic filling the kitchen. They felt like music I hadn't heard in years. I used to eat while checking emails, or replying to messages, or watching videos. But this time it was just me and the meal. Simple, present, peaceful. And that peace felt more nourishing than the food itself. When I sat down to eat, I realized how rare this feeling had become. To do one thing at a time, to give it full attention. In a world that celebrates multitasking, stillness feels like rebellion. But maybe that's the kind of rebellion we need, the one that brings us back to ourselves. Later that night, I opened my journal and wrote about the day. Not to post it, not to share it, just to remember it. The handwriting felt clumsy at first, but there was beauty in that imperfection. Each word felt more alive than any typed message. And as I wrote, I noticed something. I wasn't lonely. I was alone. Yes, but not lonely. There's a big difference. Loneliness is emptiness. Aloneness is presence. And I had found presence again. That's what freedom truly is. Not the ability to go everywhere at once, but the ability to be fully somewhere. It's not about escaping the digital world, but knowing when to step out of it. The world doesn't need us to be online all the time. It needs us to show up, real, focused, and alive. That was lesson number 5 from my phone-free day. Freedom isn't about turning off your phone. It's about turning on your life. It's about remembering that silence isn't empty. It's full of meaning. And sometimes, to find yourself again, all you have to do is stop scrolling, look up, and breathe. When I woke up the next morning, the world felt different. Not because it had changed, but because I had. The air felt clearer. My thoughts weren't racing. There was no urge to grab my phone, no hunger for updates or alerts. For once, silence didn't feel like something to fill. It felt like something to enjoy. I brewed my coffee again, and it struck me how peaceful the moment was. No notifications lighting up, no background noise of endless content, just steam rising, light breaking through the window, and my own company. I realized I hadn't missed much online, but I had gained something priceless offline. Time, presence, clarity, things we often trade away without even noticing. Throughout the day, I caught myself reaching for my pocket out of habit. That tiny reflex made me smile. It showed how deep the pattern ran and how freeing it felt to break it. I didn't need to know what everyone else was doing. I didn't need to capture every moment to prove it was real. The moment itself was enough. We often live like collectors, gathering photos, likes, messages, but rarely stopping to ask what all of it adds up to. Does it make us happier, more connected, more alive? Or are we just filling the space where quiet used to be? That day, I realized that not everything valuable can be seen or shared. Some things only live in memory, and that's what makes them sacred. Later that afternoon, I checked my phone again, just to see. The world was still there. Messages had piled up, yes, but nothing was urgent. Nothing that couldn't wait a few hours. And for the first time, that didn't bother me. Because the real world, the one I could see, touch, and feel, felt more important. It made me think about how we define connection today. We measure it in notifications and responses. But maybe real connection isn't about being reachable. It's about being present. It's the quiet comfort of sitting with yourself. It's being fully alive in your own moment before trying to share it with the world. I realized something else too. I didn't want to quit my phone. I just wanted to use it differently, with intention, not impulse. Because technology isn't the enemy. Distraction is. The phone only takes as much of us as we give it. And maybe the secret isn't to disconnect forever, but to remember that connection should serve us, not consume us. As the evening came, I turned off my phone again, not out of guilt, but gratitude. Gratitude for the space, the quiet, the rediscovery of what it means to live awake. I watched the sunset without needing to post it. It felt private, personal, a moment that belonged only to me, and somehow that made it more beautiful. That was lesson number 6 from my phone-free day. You don't lose much when you step away. You gain perspective. You remember that the world doesn't need to see everything you experience. Some of life's best moments are meant to be lived, not shared. And maybe the real reason we look at screens so much is because we've forgotten how to simply look around. A week after my first phone-free day, I decided to do it again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. That single day of silence had left something behind, a craving for clarity. It wasn't just about rest anymore. It was about returning to what mattered. And so, every week, I started giving myself one small gift. A few hours without my phone. At first, I thought I would struggle to keep up with messages or plans. But what surprised me was how natural it became. Those hours turned into a ritual, like a breath my mind didn't know it needed. The world slowed down. I slowed down with it. And in that slowness, I began to see my days differently. I noticed patterns. How often I reached for my phone without reason. How often I filled silence because it felt awkward. Now I was learning to sit with it, to trust it, to let it teach me. Silence wasn't empty. It was a mirror. It reflected everything I'd been too distracted to face. My thoughts, my dreams, my fears, all waiting for a moment of quiet to be heard. One Saturday morning, I left my phone at home and went to a park. The world looked sharper. The colors felt richer. Even the air smelled cleaner. People were walking, laughing, living. And I was part of it, not an observer behind a screen. That kind of connection doesn't need Wi-Fi. It needs presence. And presence, I realized, is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. These weekly breaks became more than just a habit. They became healing. I started to feel more focused during the week. My thoughts were clearer, my energy steadier. It was like giving my mind a deep breath after days of constant noise. When I returned to my phone, I used it with intention. Not out of impulse. And that made all the difference. People started noticing the change too. Friends said I seemed calmer, more patient, more grounded. I laughed because it wasn't magic. It was simply space. Space to feel, to think, to be. In a world that constantly tells us to stay online, I was learning to stay present. And it reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. Life isn't waiting for us on a screen. It's happening all around us right now. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I thought about the irony of it all. We use our phones to capture beauty, but sometimes, in doing so, we stop truly seeing it. That sunset, the one you don't post, don't record, it stays with you longer because it becomes yours, not content for others to scroll past. Moments like that are the quiet rewards of being here now. That was lesson number 7 from my phone-free journey. Disconnection is not rejection, it's redirection. It's choosing to step away from noise so you can move closer to meaning. It's remembering that balance isn't built by avoiding technology, but by mastering your relationship with it. Now, every time I turn off my phone, I smile because it's not an escape, it's a homecoming. A small reminder that peace doesn't live in the next notification. It lives in stillness, in breath, in the gentle rhythm of being alive. And sometimes, the most powerful connection you can make is with the world in front of you. Now, whenever I turn my phone off, I don't feel disconnected. I feel grounded. The silence that once felt strange has become my reset button. It reminds me that real life doesn't glow from a screen. It breathes all around us. You don't have to disappear to find peace. Just pause, even for a little while. Because when you slow down, you start to notice what truly matters. The laughter nearby, the warmth of sunlight, the calm within yourself. These are the moments that shape us. Not the ones we post, but the ones we live. So, take a break. Step outside. Let the world speak to you again. Turn it off. Tune into now.